here is a challenge that I set myself, and I set my audience when I gave a presentation at the Equals Madrid conference, which was to do something different to standard general English courses, where we're focused on, grammar work and usage and reading and writing and listening and speaking for its own sake. I propose that we offer courses that give students a clearer sense of their purpose, that recognizes that they are more than learners of grammar, and that they have aims and ambitions and objectives that are bigger than that. And so the proposal that I made was that a course like this, a project-based course for adults, would have to have authentic topics, collaborative tasks. Intercultural communication would have to be important. There would need to be a project-based approach, as we discussed, and ongoing developmental feedback rather than grading. So the motivation here is the publication or the presentation, and the feedback is in order to enable the students to do that better. So it's kind of formative in its approach. So the other important point I felt in designing these programs was that they should be focused on learning, not just exams. So of course, achievement exams are important to our students, especially if they are with us for academic year programs. But the key focus of the teacher should be on the students' learning, not on their exam. So sometimes we can get trapped into this need to develop techniques and shortcuts and ways to do well in an exam that are not to do with learning. And so that's why I felt the emphasis should be importantly on the learning. And then technology is there as a tool for the learners. It's the world that they live in. It's at their fingertips every day, but it's just a tool. It's not the teacher. The technology will not teach the students. They will not learn from the technology. They will learn from each other with the social and collaborative element, and with the direction, with the guidance of the teacher. So I have been living up to my challenge that I set everybody, and we have put our Future Learning Adult English Language course out there, and we have been running it since September of 2019. So this is how we are describing the course to our students on our website, and it includes all of the elements which I described in the kind of mission statement from the Equals 2019 presentation that I showed you earlier on. So this is a big change now, because we've gone from having junior students on short courses where we are supplementing what they are learning at home, and so it can be seen as, you know, a nice breakaway or an escape from the real classes. And here we are bringing it in as the key element of our academic year programs. So the question was, how do we sustain this over 25 weeks for the learners? So we know that it works in a week and in 2 weeks with the junior programs, but adapting that to this very different scenario was the challenge. And so that's where the subtitle of "Easier Said Than Done" comes into its own. So our students had concerns, you know, that they were, of course, really familiar with the traditional type of classes that they relied on, and they came to us, yes, with the knowledge of that they were going to do something innovative and different. But like we know very well, students don't always read the material you send them very carefully, and so they were a bit surprised by this new approach, and it took our students a while to adapt and to get used to that. So the kind of concerns that they expressed are the ones that you would expect. Some students were really concerned that there weren't enough grammar exercises. So for them, improving in your language was to do better in your grammar exercises, that these were the same thing. And so anything that wasn't a grammar-led syllabus was something that they were worried about, how that could possibly lead to their improvement. The next challenge and the concern that the students had was about working in teams. So in a teacher-led class, of course, it doesn't really matter that much who else is in the class, because it's about the student interacting with the teacher and only a little bit with the other student beside them. But with a project-based approach, there is a lot more riding on the interaction between the students in the team, because in order to collaborate, in order to develop that skill and use the language in that context, they're depending on the other members of the team. And so often there was concerns about a teammate that was slow to understand or slow to explain what was their side of it. And so these were students who both were equally prepared to do the achievement exam, but had different abilities in terms of how quickly they spoke and understood spoken English. So that's something that came up quite well. The other one was continuity. So students were concerned about, my teammate is not here today, we can't finish our project. And so this was a big issue on the long-term courses, because some people are good at attending and are there diligently every day, and some people are not. And by creating a project-based approach, students were depending on each other to come. And so when that student didn't come, that was a difficulty. And so we had to construct the projects in a way that would make them less dependent on each other. The perennial problem of my group are always speaking their own language became more emphasized in the course of the project work. And so the students were looking to the teacher to enforce the speaking of English in the group, and it was something that we had to create learning contracts for and make a pact with the students that they would respect each other by not lapsing into their own language when trying to do the project. But of course, it cost them, and they find it very challenging. Some students would come up with this from time to time. Because a project means working on the same topic over a number of days, some students didn't look for or didn't find the relevance of a particular project. And so the challenge for the teachers there was to show them what that relevance was, because they were going to be working on it for at least 3 days, maybe not the whole lesson, but part of the lesson every day. And so they had to find, how did this relate to their experience? How did this, what contribution could they make to the team? And so that was a challenge for the teachers and a concern to the students. This one was a big one that came out with the project work. I'm too shy to speak in front of the class. They're also confident. So this tension between introverts and extroverts really came out. So in a standard class where the teacher is kind of carrying the load and initiating a lot of the interaction, it is not so sharply felt. But where the students have to manage that interaction themselves in collaborating in groups, the introverts can feel really inhibited with that. And so we had to do projects that were based around what is your style, and make them aware that there are differences between introverts and extroverts, and it's not only the people who speak first or who contribute to the group that know things or that have a useful contribution. So we found ourselves having to make this the content of some of the lessons. So we had to foreground that skill and that knowledge that would allow them to be effective when it came to working together and to be understanding. This idea of it's not serious enough was also an issue. So again, level-wise, the students were of a very similar level, but the student felt that project work was not serious. So they wanted something that, I suppose, to suffer and to feel that they were suffering for their learning, as opposed to something that was maybe a little bit fun or entertaining for the other students. Concerned about a book and how that gives the students a sense of progress was also something that we heard from the students. And while we did have content that we were drawing from the National Geographic materials, we were not every day, turning to the next chapter, the next page in the book. And so some students found that a little bit disorientating. The student then who was absent maybe didn't understand what they had to do, if they weren't there yesterday. So that again was a problem of consistent attendance and how important it was in a project-based approach. This is one of my favorite comments that we got, where the student said, "I thought innovative approach would mean a more fun way to learn grammar." And so again, really not understanding what it meant to be part of a project-based approach, what the benefits were. So we found ourselves having to do a lot of work on that. There was also the concern about, have I passed or failed my project? And where's the grade? And so when we were giving them formative assessment and descriptor-based feedback, that wasn't there. So the students were kind of concerned about that. And again, we had to do a bit of work on what does that mean for them and help them understand it. And the issue of technology skills was also one, because we did use the technology a lot as a tool, but the students found that a challenge and a new challenge and maybe an unexpected challenge as part of the program. So I'm going to just press on for 5 more minutes here, because I want to kind of draw this point to a conclusion, and then I can see that there's some questions coming in, so we'll try and deal with them then after that. So I asked my teachers what they said about it, and this was really my favorite comment from Molly, who said that the problem with PBL is that when it's taught so well, it's so realistic that the students feel cheated by the absence of the dull repetition and monotony that tells them that they're learning. So the challenge for the teacher then is to prove that we haven't cheated them and that they shouldn't feel guilty about enjoying themselves in school. So that's the kind of the key challenge, I think. So the other teachers also had their take on it too. But the response that we came up with was a kind of a bridging strategy. So we made some concessions, and we developed what one of the staff here calls soft PBL. So we did say, look, there will be some explicit grammar. We'll make time for that. We'll show you when that is, and we'll flag it. And so we made those commitments to them, to the students, in order to bridge the gap, because we found that it was a big challenge and a big leap for them to get from what they were used to doing to where we were with the project-based learning. And then, of course, commitments go both ways. So we asked them in exchange to commit to these things. Respect the other people. So that's the key to successful group work and successful collaboration. Attend regularly, because this was the biggest challenge to make the group work successful. Participate, be present, be there. Try in English. So we kind of allowed that some students were at a lower level and they were doing their best, but we asked them to do as much as they could in English, and we had a lot to do to try and encourage them not to be embarrassed about that, because they're looking at the more fluent members of their group and comparing themselves to that. And then do something outside class at least twice a week. And for some students, that was 5 minutes. That was as much as they could manage. And for some students, they really did so much more than that. And so that was the way that we responded to the concerns of the students, and that we kind of came to an approach to project-based learning that worked. We had to do a lot of this where we were teaching them about how to be successful learners. So we did a whole project about learner autonomy. What does it mean? How can they make that a key to their approach, and how they can learn to be successful learners. So that really became an important element of the content of our classes.